Good evening, everyone. Mayor Michael Foley here, live from Westbrook City Hall. This evening, we have a meeting of the Westbrook City Council Facilities and Streets Committee that I will be facilitating and turning it over to Chair Michael Shaughnessy in a moment. For those watching on Facebook Live and those attending via the Zoom link, if you would like to participate in the meeting, please submit your comments or Q&A using the Zoom Q&A function. With that, I will turn it over to the chair, Michael Shaughnessy, to call the meeting to order. It looks like we do have a quorum, and then we'll discuss the item before the committee. Michael?
All right. I'd like to call to order a meeting of the Streets and Facilities Committee of the Westbrook City Council. And we're here to discuss the Cornelia Warren Recreation Area operational cost comparison between an outdoor pool and a splash park. And I'm going to turn it over back to Mayor Foley, and he'll probably turn it over to Greg Post. So,
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to thank everybody for being able to join today on the somewhat last minute notice. As everybody has known, a number of years ago, the city received a grant from the Land and Water Conservation Fund to conduct repairs and renovations and enhancements at the Cornelia Warren Outdoor Recreation Area. This area currently includes an outdoor swimming pool, basketball courts, and a softball field. And the scope and components of this work has previously been discussed by the City Council. More recently, we brought on a project manager to help us with this project, as well as a number of other projects to get these off the ground, to assist our city staff in getting these projects off the ground, a number of grant-funded projects that we have. And so we wanted to discuss the concept that we've been evaluating, which is the repairs and improvements needed to the swimming pool. The Community Service Department has explored the feasibility of a splash pad to supplement or replace the existing swimming pool. And as part of our early analysis, it appears it would result in a significant savings, as well as a number of different pros and cons, depending on which option that we chose. And so prior to moving forward with any plans, we wanted to discuss this with the committee to see if this was something that they were interested in. And really the question at hand is whether we'd like to, based on limited funds, whether we'd like to explore replacing the current outdoor pool with a splash pad or continuing with renovations to the existing outdoor pool. If the committee chooses to proceed with a replacement of the current outdoor pool with a splash pad, then we would want to do an extensive public process to allow the public to participate and comment on the situation. So if that's something the committee chooses to explore, as we're getting ready to potentially prepare some budget documents or some plan documents for this project so we can get a budget associated with it, then we would recommend that the committee refer this item to the City Council for a public hearing on June 1st, when we believe we'll be able to have in-person public meetings again. And with that, I will, with your permission, turn it over to Greg Post, our Director of Community Services, who's been working with our project manager and developed the analysis that was included in this evening's packet. Greg?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Chairman Shaughnessy, and other members of the committee. Thank you for providing us the opportunity to be here tonight to present you with an operational cost comparison for aquatics amenities at the Cornelia Warren Recreation Area on Main Street in downtown Westbrook. As you know, my name is Greg Post. I serve as the city's Community Services Director. I grew up in Westbrook. I've been here most of my life, except for a few years in my mid-20s. Grew up here, graduated here, and now work here. It's also been a great place for my wife and I to raise our family. The Cornelia Warren Recreation Area, or the Fraser Field Complex, depending on what you want to refer to it as, for as long as I can remember, it's been a special place for members of this community to enjoy recreational opportunities. I remember it fondly as a kid, and later bringing my kids there as well, whether it was playing ball on the softball field, shooting hoops at the courts, walking the trail, or swimming in the pool. It's provided something for everyone and created lasting memories over the years. But nonetheless, it's become an aged facility and needs some upgrades. The first step that we saw was with the renovation of the basketball courts back in 2015. Then in 2016, when additional grant money was awarded to the city to redevelop this facility and give it some desperately needed attention, we were all pretty excited about that. Recently, as the mayor mentioned, along with Robin Saunders, who was the project manager for the city, I've been asked to help move this project along and prepare it for the RFP process. Our task, as you can appreciate, is to be fiscally responsible, to reduce annual deficits and limit any potential taxpayer burden, and to provide a water attraction that continues to serve the community in the best way possible. We're all partners in this process, the public, city administration, our department, and we realize that partners don't always agree on everything. But what we have tonight is an operational cost comparison and information that we hope addresses all the key items. And after a discussion with everybody involved, we hope that we can determine which direction or which option to pursue as we move forward with this project. We understand what this area means to the city of Westbrook, which is why we're being very thorough with the process. One thing to keep in mind as we go through the presentation is that it costs roughly $67,000 to run the outdoor pool each summer. That's a 10-week season. That is about 41% of our annual aquatics budget. And in return, we bring back about $15,000 in pool revenue. So we're spending about 41% of our budget to bring back about 17. Overall, that's a loss of about $52,000 per year. So just to give you some additional background on this, a little bit of history. As you've heard, back in 2016, we were awarded some grant money to proceed with some upgrades to this facility. That's the Land and Water Conservation Fund, the CDBG grant for the community development, Westbrook Environmental Improvement Corporation, Westbrook Recreation and Conservation Commission, Cornelia Warren Community Foundation, and the city's capital improvement plan. The grant and purchase agreements that we put in place to complete the task were to construct and rehabilitate the existing bathhouse, reconstruct the parking area, which we know is desperately needed, redevelop the ball fields, and enhance the aquatic facilities, utilities, landscaping, and signage. The next step in the redevelopment process is to draft a request for proposals, an RFP, for survey and design services to prepare a design with a construction cost estimate that we'll use to solicit contractor bids later in 2020. Before moving forward with the design and construction, the city is weighing all the options, as we mentioned, to maximize this community investment, especially as it pertains to outdoor aquatics facilities. We have two options that we've presented as part of this package. Option one is to upgrade the existing outdoor pool. Within the grant application, there was about $225,000 allocated to pool upgrades. That was specifically earmarked for the bathhouse and the showers and everything that kind of goes with the whole changing thing, restrooms, things of that regard. All new fencing, new gutters. Right now, the gutters, they're chipping away in the filtration system. Though that's been improved over the year, the actual gutters themselves, because of the cracking, there's slow leakage over the course of the year, and that's something that needs to be addressed to the tune of about $25,000 to rectify that. The pool itself is about 250,000 gallons to fill, and we go through about 650,000 gallons a year. So you can see that's just a combination of losing water, evaporation, things of that nature, just spillage, and us having to address that each day by putting water back into the pool. So it's a pretty big amount of water, and it's about an $8,000 price tag that we spend on water each year. Option two is to look at and follow a growing national trend, which is to remove the outdoor pool and replace it with a splash pad or a splash park, depending on how you want to look at it. So what we've done is we've gone through and we looked at the operational cost comparison. And I know most of you have this in front of you, but I really want to run through it, just kind of spotlight what we're looking at. The big thing with the information is when you look at it and you look at our operating costs, because the costs are covered under the grant fund, we have the money to move forward in some capacity. So we're not necessarily looking at ways to fund either amenity. We're looking at ways to be cost effective moving forward. So when you look at the comparison of annual operating costs for both options, we've concluded that option 2, which is replacing the outdoor pool with a splash pad, is certainly the most cost effective. And as we look at reasons why, there's quite a few of them. So the annual operational costs associated with option 2 are much lower. So there's an estimated savings in the documents that we sent you. There's an estimated savings of about $20,000 to $21,000 annually, and that is due in part to a lot of things. So staffing requirements. So with staffing, with having the pool, it's significantly higher because lifeguards are required whenever there's standing water. That's eliminated with option 2. In fact, there's no need for lifeguards because there's no standing water. One of the things that we did leave in there into the operating budget was a cost for our recreation coordinator who oversees both our pools. We initially thought that in year 1, there would be a lot more babysitting because it's a new project. We were under the impression that a system that refilters the water would be more cost effective. It turned out that it really wasn't. But if we did go in that direction, you'd have to check your filters, you'd have to do your backwash, you'd have to treat your chemicals. Certainly a lot more maintenance involved on a day-to-day basis. We also put in there a cost for having what we would call a pool attendant on site to kind of manage the rules and to address any potential issues. Again, the way that those systems are set up is that if there's a filter that gets clogged or something of that nature, the system shuts down. So it would be nice to have somebody on site to be able to address those issues and kind of figure out what are the next steps. Do we need to call maintenance? What do we need to do? And we thought as an opportunity, because we'd have somebody there, we could offer concessions and things like that to kind of recoup some of the costs. Today, we had a follow-up conversation. Robin and I spoke with Janice, her last name is escaping me, Horvath, down at New Hampshire Parks and Rec down in Manchester on Friday. They have an existing splash park, and they're putting in a new one. We also followed up with a conversation this morning with Vortex, who is the installer of these programs, and they assured us that going with the flow-through system is much more efficient. In fact, it's almost as simple as turning the water on and you're ready to roll. No daily maintenance, no staffing needed beyond, no lifeguards, no pool attendant, no nothing. So we would actually be comfortable not only saying a $20,000 to $21,000 annual savings, but when you remove the $14,000 for our recreation coordinator, who primarily is going to be here at this facility now and not babysitting that facility as well, and you pull back out the $11,000 that we had allocated for pool attendants, now you're talking in excess of $40,000 in savings. So we can get to a little bit more of that as we move forward. So water usage, depending on which system, can be drastically reduced. But by going with the flow through, you actually, even though you're going to use more water, you're saving on your initial capital investment. So ultimately, there are savings there. A couple of big things. ADA accessibility will be maximized. Although the outdoor pool has an ADA compliant lift, it's rarely used. It's there if anybody needs it, but it's rarely used. A splash park removes any barriers for handicapped patrons and provides much needed recreational space and resources for underserved populations. In fact, we looked at it almost like a challenger division in Little League baseball and softball. A lot of times, children with disabilities or special needs, they don't feel comfortable in a pool setting. They also don't feel comfortable around crowds. You could actually designate hours to specifically be used for special needs groups and things like that, which we thought was huge. It's a wider audience that you can serve with a splash pad. In addition to the special needs concern, a splash pad or splash park allows special opportunities for all ages, toddlers to seniors. It's especially helpful for those that haven't been taught to swim. With our current demographic, we've got low-income families, we've got immigrants, we've got people that either don't know how to swim, can't afford to swim. This eliminates that potential, potential for them to not come because, again, it's not suitable and they're not capable of swimming, things like that. It certainly expands the aquatic season. Right now, we spend the majority of June getting the outdoor pool ready. School gets out usually about the third week in June, and we start right in that following Monday. This year would have been June 22nd, I believe it was. And it runs for about 10 weeks when it's all said and done, right up until Labor Day. So it's an 11 to 7, Monday through Friday. It's a little bit shorter hours on the weekends. With the splash pad, you're talking, you could go as early as April vacation if you've got those 80, 90-degree days and people want to get out there. But more realistically, you're talking about the 1st of May, middle of May, all the way through potentially the end of September. So you're essentially taking what now is a 10-week season, and you're building it to almost a 6-month opportunity. Most of these splash pads, they run their traditional summertime, where it's nonstop for 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and then they do weekends as well. So when you're anticipating that hot water or the hot weather, the warmer weather, you can open it up. And it's all controlled through the programming of what hours you want the pad to be functional. A lot of times, the way it's set up, water is coming to the splash pad, but if nobody's there, it's not running. It's all touch sensitive, so you have to actually go in and touch some of the elements to actually get the water to go. So it's not like it's constant, flow throughout the day. It is based on usage. The cost of residents and non-residents are minimized. Right now with the outdoor pool, and we can never seem to win this battle, prices, as you know, continue to go up, whether it's staffing with minimum wage, whether it's chemicals. Right now, for children and seniors, it's $3 a day to get in and swim, and that covers you from open to close. And it's $6 for adults. So when you look at it over the course of people are going to get out and spend 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, it's certainly small money to some. But by having a splash pad, you're talking about an open facility that has some designated hours, but it's free of charge. The space for recreation is maximized. Right now, we've got the bathhouse, the showers, all the mechanical. We have 2 separate buildings. By doing this, we can condense into one smaller building that offers public restrooms and your mechanical, and not having to invest $100,000 into a bathhouse of similar size and nature that we have now. We can reallocate some of that money either to the splash pad or other amenities in that recreational area. So out of time service, as you know, we've had a couple incidences here over the years. We had, so if there's an accident in the pool, a lot of times you have to shut it down completely. You have to treat your chemicals. You have to get them back to standards. Sometimes you have to drain the pool if you can't balance the chemicals. With this, nothing gets into the filtration system, and your downtime is minimal. You almost don't have to shut down. You bleach the surface, you clean, you do some things like that, and it's very minimal. So the risk and cost to the city are minimized. You've got lower staffing costs, like we talked about, minimized water throughout. The flow system does not require chemicals, backwashing, any of that stuff, so those are reduced costs. Minimal liability concerns. There's no standing water, so peace of mind and just, again, that liability is almost non-existent at that point. And I think one thing that wasn't included in the packet that we gave you, but I think it's very important to realize, is we have another pool. We've got a pool here at the Westbrook Community Center. We utilize it a lot in the summertime for our summer camps, Chevrolet Sports Camp, Chukadu, things of that nature, like more of the groups. But we would be committed to utilizing this pool to expand hours and programming throughout the summer to offer things like your open swim and your lap swim and things that we may do at the outdoor pool that we may essentially lose out on if we replace the pool with a splash pad. So I think in closing, there's a lot of information out there, and we understand that it's an important process. We want to do it and do it right. My concern is coming into this year, I mentioned in the open what it costs to run the outdoor pool each year. So coming into this current fiscal year, we had made an effort to try to make the pool self-supporting. I think for all of us involved, that's a huge task. We saw with those numbers, when you're talking your operational costs and when you're talking about $3 to $6 for your entry, which again it's not high, but it's not inexpensive either for people. It's very challenging to be able to catch up to your operating budget. You're always going to have a loss. So for us, this current fiscal year is the first year that we've used our fund balance, money that we've accumulated over the years through either offsetting things with grant money and things like that, that any deficits that we have, we would offset it with that fund balance. My concern is by doing that, overall, our aquatics deficits are about $75,000 a year. And a big portion of that is salary and seasonal staff. We have currently about $117,000 in fund balances available. So continuing under the current platform, we could sustain that loss for another year. But when we go into fiscal year 2022, we're going to have about $32,000 left in the kitty to offset a $75,000 annual deficit for the aquatics programs. So, keeping that in mind and just doing what we think might be the most fiscally responsible and financially responsible, if you added in those additional savings that I mentioned by focusing the recreation coordinator primarily here and not having to babysit and eliminating the pool attendant, which isn't a necessity by any means, you're looking at, instead of a $52,000 loss at the outdoor pool, you're now looking at about a $6,400 loss at the outdoor pool, which it's a loss, but it's way more manageable, that's for sure. So I guess with that, it's a lot of information that I kind of threw at you. I'll open it up to questions and comments and any feedback you might have.
Mr. Chair, if I may just piggyback on Greg, the outdoor pool this year, we believe, is going to remain closed given the COVID-19 pandemic situation. So we thought this was an opportunity to also visit this situation. Given that gathering can't occur till later in the summer, that, as Greg alluded to, the time to get the pool set up and all those situations, for it to be just open a few weeks, it wouldn't necessarily be the most prudent thing to do given the situation. And we're not sure about what the gathering capabilities will be later on in the season. But ultimately, we have these budget discussions every year, these challenges, given that a lot of counselors are new to the city council. Councilor Chow can probably speak to this. We have had these challenges every single year with the pool and the deficits that it creates with finances. And in an effort to not only be fiscally responsible, but make a cool attraction that would bring people in our community, bring people from around our community. Nobody would have anything like this in the area. And we think it would be, we'd be remiss if we didn't give this some serious consideration and have a public process for it. I'll let you go take over and go to the committee members. And then I do have a few public comments that have been submitted that I'll share.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That's all right. My question is regarding the age group that would be able to use this. In my experience, these types of places are geared toward the younger kids, probably elementary school rather than older. Is this the plan?
The way that we've been basing this is off the model has been the Manchester, New Hampshire splash park, where they replaced their pool. The way that is set up, and we certainly have the capability because of the space that we have available already. It's a pretty large pool deck and a pretty large pool down there. It can be set up so that it gears to different age groups. You might have your infants and your moms in this section. There's a section for your toddlers, and then it gradually gets bigger. It's almost set up so that they're in different sections and still separate, but part of one complex, so that every demographic can be addressed. And that's really the cool part of this entire thing.
But you said, taller and bigger. What is the cutoff? What would be, attractive? Teenagers?
You would certainly get teenagers down there. Yeah, I think the big thing is it's going to be teenagers and even older individuals just going down and looking to refresh. They might only be there for 5 minutes, but just to get wet. I don't think you'll find teenagers down there for an extended amount of time like you would families. But again, it would be set up so that they're in a different portion of the thing, so they're not overlapping and really even being a part of each other's experience.
Thank you.
Hi, Michael.
Yep.
I don't know if we're using the hand thing, but can I just add a couple points? So obviously, the parking is going to have to get taken in consideration, and we want to make sure that that does. But for the splash park, and as you were talking, Greg, I did kind of Google. There's one in Lowell, Massachusetts, and would this have like features like a water wheel or things that entice little kids? And then there's a couple of questions, and you can answer them at the end. They're pretty easy, but so I'm thinking a water wheel for the little ones, or maybe a misty area for older folks. And I'm assuming that it will be on the existing pad where the pool is. You'd fill in that pool, and that material that the pad itself is it obviously like textured, or we've rented hotel rooms and tiled, very, very slippery, and with that, what type of warranty comes with that? Because I'm picturing like a slab with a coating on it, and compared to the pool, which it has been there since I remember the old swimming tank where the sides were just slanted, and we put a lot of money into it. And I'm wondering about the number of participants that it could hold. And obviously, if we move forward with this, I remember standing in line because we were at capacity back in the 70s, and is that something that if we move forward with this, and I'm sure that I know that's not what we're doing tonight. We're actually seeing if it goes to the council, and then the community could ask these questions. But I was just wondering if you could just elaborate on a couple of those. And you said there's no standing water, so I'm figuring like little puddles.
Yeah, I'll try to answer those. Let me know if I'm missing anything. The surface itself, it's a non-slip surface. It's a special. It's not like one of those things that gets wet and you end up, if you're running on it, you're slipping. It's a non-slip surface specifically made for this. The span of this. We talked to a splash pad operator down in Derry, New Hampshire. They have had theirs up and running for 12 years, and they haven't had to do any maintenance to it. They've bought a couple rings for some of their things over the last handful of years, but they estimate their estimate is over that 12-year period, they've had to spend about $700 or $800 on parts. So the surface itself and everything is very durable, very withstanding. The warranty, I think, was the next question. So all of the plastic is a 15-year warranty. The posts that hold the different elements, there's actually a 100-year warranty on that. The face plates is a 15-year warranty. Right now, it's a 10-year warranty on the plastic parts, but they're moving away from the plastic parts and they're going to more of the mold type apparatus, and there's a 20-year warranty on that. So at this point, the shortest warranty is 10 years, but it looks like once they move entirely to the molds, you're looking at a 15 or more year warranty on that.
Mm-hmm.
The different elements, it does have, it's endless. Am I able to share this screen? I can kind of show a picture. Let's see.
If you can't hit share, I can make you a co-host.
It says host disabled, participant screen sharing. I can show you like some of the different elements. That,
Barry,
like,
can you make Greg a co-host as well?
Actually, there's one right back of Victor.
Yeah, right. Where'd you get that from? Because I should recognize that. I've looked at about 1,000 photos over the last week.
It looks like you're a co-host now, Greg, so you should be able to share your screen with the group.
I got duped. I was looking at what I thought was Payson Park in Portland, and it was like Payson, Utah or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see where we are at. All right. Let's see. Let's go. Photos. That's what we're looking for. So here is. Can you see that? All right.
You got to make it bigger.
Yeah, open it up.
Double click on it.
Yeah, it's massive on my screen.
Yeah, I think you're not sharing that screen.
Which screen are you seeing? Are you just seeing
your file list.
All right, let me. Sorry about that. Is that any better?
No.
No, it's just showing your file list. Can you drag the thing over? I think it's using like a separate display.
Is that DuPont?
Yeah, that's DuPont. Is that, can you see that or no?
No.
Huh. I wonder why that is.
Greg, cancel the screen share, and then when you hit share again, choose the pictures that you have open.
Okay.
It'll give you the option to do that.
All right, let's do that.
I just pulled it up.
There you go.
Wow.
Okay, so you guys can see that now?
Yeah. That
Okay.
looks like a bathhouse in the background.
Yeah, no doubt, right? So, so yeah, you can see there's different elements. So you've got the dumping bucket. There's some other kind of swivel things that you can add in. The one thing with something like this is the dumping bucket clearly uses a lot of water. So if you're going on a flow-through system, it's going to fill up, it's going to dump. Again, we've got money already invested or budgeted for water. We don't feel we'll exceed that number even with something like this. But clearly there's different options that you can utilize. And there was even one earlier today. We were looking at one in Caribou that it has what they call a water journey. And it's something for younger kids that it's kind of a mold that gets put into the ground, and it's got like swinging gates. So younger kids can like sit down and the water runs through and they use the gates and they can do different things. And, you know, the big part about it is just, it becomes more of an experience. Kids learn from it. It's more imaginative, you know, things like that. So let me see if I can.
And Greg,
it. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that if we have inclement weather, nothing runs and no electricity, no nothing.
Correct.
No chemicals.
No chemicals. And there wouldn't be chemicals involved with this anyway. But I think one of the big things for me is right now we open the outdoor pool and, you know, say we open at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, you know, 1:30, 2 o'clock, a big thunderstorm rolls through and thunder, lightning, we shut everything down, we send everybody home. And then by 3:30, 4 o'clock, it's past and it's 95 degrees out. We don't have the ability to call everybody back in and kind of start things up again. Something like this, once all that passes, the first kid that goes out and touches it, it comes back on, you know? So
Right.
in a sense, it's always open. Let me see if I can share this other photo. Can you see that one?
Not I.
Let's see.
Yeah, nothing's coming up yet.
Okay.
Victor changed his background.
Let me do this. I'll there is it. Nope, that's not what I got.
Yeah, it came up.
Yep, you got something.
Did you see the other one, the dairy one that has no fence around it or anything? Is that showing?
I think that's this one here. It's got like castles and.
It has like a playground.
Yeah, let me pull that back up. Just I want to make sure that. want to make sure that we're looking at the right one here.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one here is another example of, this one has the dumping buckets. It doesn't have a fence around it. It's always wide open. You know, that's one of the things that you're not required to have a fence. You know, Robin and I have kind of bounced back and forth on that. Should it have a fence? Shouldn't it? When we spoke to Vortex earlier today, one of the things that they talked about was that because you're not having a system, a holding tank, and the filtration and the recirculation, you don't have to worry as much for filters and things like that. So literally, you can go in, you can wear street clothes, you know, if you have some grass on your feet or whatever, it's not going to hurt the system at all. We're still going to get down there probably once a day with our certified pool operator, pop in, just check, make sure nothing, you know, looks like it's going to clog up. Like he said, after a week or two, you kind of get a sense of when you need to address things. Like as we get later into the season, potentially into September, and leaves start falling, you know, you may have to get down there a little bit more, but for the most part, you're not required to put a fence. So it's a lot more welcoming. Again, the admission is a lot more welcoming because it's free, and certainly the cost savings on it. Again, we're still gonna lose money overall, but being able to cut that deficit by about $45,000 is huge. Did I answer all your questions, Gary?
You did. Thank you very much.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I know Councilor Chow has his hand up, and I think Chief Roberts also joined us and wanted to participate.
Victor?
Yes, thank you. Actually, I have a bunch of questions. I'll post it in the comments, and then I'll ask them. And then, Greg, if you could just chime in after each comment, or the administration could,
Sure.
that'd be great. So one comment is, Greg, I'd like to see your budget your budget stat for the stats. I know you mentioned it before the meeting, 41% and 17%. But if you could have that in a written report for future discussion, so the public actually knows, because I tried to catch all of it and started writing notes down, but I missed a lot of it. So
Yeah.
If you could have that report ready so we can have an intelligent conversation with the public. But this is actually behind me is Shed Park in Lowell, Massachusetts. This is an amazing splash park. It's my favorite park. I just totally love it. Every time we go to Philadelphia in the summertime to visit my family, we always stop by Shed Park and just splash around. This picture is quite old, but I love it. The splash pad has a lot of features that are just basically it is, this one's manned, and that's the only thing I don't like about this. But when you want the water to run, the kids hit a button and that turns on the water function, so electricity runs. If no kids hit a button, then it won't run, and that's good because if it's cold or you know, like just no one wants to go because they're somewhere else, that we won't run. So it's nice to have that push button, and once that button's pushed, then it'll activate. So this is a really great park. I really recommend I don't know if it's open yet or will open this year, but I know that Mayor Foley has young kids, and if you could take into Shed Park in Lowell, Massachusetts. It's right off the highway. You can just hop off the highway at Lowell, go to that park in less than 5 minutes, and hop back on the highway. It's really amazing. Anyways, next question would be Greg, also could you provide in your future meetings with admission sales for the summer pool and to show how many people have paid to enter in the past few years? So basically, if you have the data of how many tickets you sold to get in the pool, that would really help discussions with whether we stay with option 1 or option 2. I've been to the outdoor pool, and I just don't seem to think it's used as much as it could be used. I think we're very fortunate in Westbrook to have 2 pools. A lot of towns have 0 pools, and they would kill to have 1 pool. I think having 1 pool might be good enough, especially since we have a loss every year, and the taxpayers pay for this pool. And it's very expensive to run a pool. What timeline are you expecting the splash pad to be done? And will we have enough time to get a full community discussion for public input?
The next step would be the RFP process. But before we go out for bid on that, we would need to know what direction to go in, so that we're bidding out either the complex with an upgraded pool, or a complex with, you know, the splash pad replacing that. So I think in an ideal world, getting that RFP out in June, but that might be a little aggressive, but shortly thereafter. So depending on what the process is and the decision is, we're talking over the next couple of months, you know, to at least get the process going and hopefully get vendors in place later this summer, fall, and then, you know, potentially getting some of this work done. We're kind of up against it with the CDBG grant. We need to start executing in order to fulfill the requirements on their end. So we'd like to have things in place, ready to go, decisions made, and numbers later this summer.
Chief Roberts.
Mayor Foley, what was your timeline? Were you expecting, the packet indicated you want public discussion on this? Do you think that's enough time, the summertime, to whether the public would like option 1 or option 2, or are we making this decision for our constituents?
We wanted to know what if the committee was interested, or the council as a whole was interested in exploring this further. If the committee said, no, we think keeping the pool is the best thing, then Greg can move forward with the RFP for the rehab of the pool as originally planned. Otherwise, if the committee is interested in us exploring it further, then we wanted to have a full public process, which would involve having a public hearing at the city council. So we would hope to get a recommendation today to refer this item to the city council for a public hearing that we would hope to schedule at our June 1st city council meeting. If for some reason we can't do it on our June 1st, then we would hope June, the second meeting in June. Then if we have the public hearing and the council decides on a direction, then we can include what type of project we want in our RFP. So we would be able to hopefully do that by the June timeframe. So then the RFP could be put out, we could get pricing. Who knows, with construction pricing, it may not be cost effective, or we may have to come up with additional funds. So it may not be something that happens right away. I hope that it comes in as a more affordable project and within the grant fund budget. And then if we award a program, either the construction could start this fall or early spring, to potentially, with the goal of having it potentially ready for next swimming season or next warm season.
Okay. All right. Next question is, if you, Greg, could you check to see what kind of park Deering Oaks has? Deering Oaks has a little splash pad with fountains, and I don't know if they use the vortex system. It seems like they just spray clean water up in the air.
They do.
And then the water overflow goes into the pond.
Correct. Yeah, they took, it looks like, let me see, I can probably show you a quick picture of that too, if I can. Let's see. I don't know. I'm not as good at this sharing thing as I
It looks like it's the other one you've previously shared.
All right, let me stop sharing that. And all right, I think I'm getting it now. Did that show up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what Deering Oaks has. They have, it's more of a wading pool, and you're right, Victor. It does have little spray nozzles and things like that, and then the water does go down into the pond. So at the footbridge, I don't know if you can see that at the bottom. I think this picture shows it. It ends and the water just kind of drains out and it gets replenished through those spray nozzles. So the city of Portland actually has this, which is like a wading pool with some spray nozzles, and they also have 4 additional splash pads. So they've got one at Stone Street, one at Payson Park. Payson Park is probably the larger of them all. It's more of kind of the mushroom that just kind of funnels the water down over your head and then goes into the reservoir. They've got one up on Munjoy Hill. I forget the name of the park. And they have one over on Douglas Street at the Kiwanis complex as well. But they're all, for the most part, very small in size, just more of an opportunity to kind of run through it and refresh as opposed to spend some time there. like I said, Payson Park is the larger of them all, and that's the one that has the mushroom type thing.
And as the next question is, however nice the savings is to have an unmanned park, I would like to see increased visits from public services and police, fire, and the public safety group. I'm not asking for full-time people there to watch them, but if employees could make it a part of their route to drive by and drive through the park and drive slowly, just so people know that we have a presence there. Again, I'm not asking people to stop and check on things, just to have a marked vehicle driving by, and I think that would be good enough. And also when it's closed, to have that as your route too, just to make sure the Vandals know that we're still watching. So I don't know if that the mayor could, or Chief Roberts could address that. The last question I have is, what would the pet policy be? Gorham is having their challenges right now with the trail by the Sebago Brewing Company, and with dog owners leaving presents for others to discover. Not sure what the policy for that is.
Right. Just to answer that real quickly, it's all across the board. Everybody has kind of a different rule, but when we spoke with Derry, New Hampshire, they actually have time set aside that you can bring your dogs up and actually run them through and let them get wet, and they kind of do their business off to the side. They're manned with their owners, so it's not like they're just randomly in there, at least we hope. So, and again, because of the system, it's a matter of just washing the deck down. It's not getting into the filtration system or anything like that. I don't know if Chief Roberts is going to jump in, but as part of the $600,000 grant, one thing that right now is earmarked is increased lighting and security elements. And I believe, I might be off a little bit, but I think it's about $125,000 just in security upgrades down at the facility. Okay. Lighting, cameras, things like that.
Excellent. All right, just inclusion that I am in favor of option 2. This is an amazing project. The splash pads are in. I love the Shed Park splash pad. And it's really such a great site. We take our family and go, and after that we go visit and eat at the Lowell restaurants and whatever they have. But it really is, you put a place for families to go, and families would drive all over New England to come to this destination. Year after year I drive to the different events, the Yarmouth Climb Festival, the Damascotta Pumpkin Fest, every single event that you can imagine. We drive and we go spend money. And this would be a huge boost for downtown if we had a destination to go to, families to go to. Families will come and spend lots of money. We were supposed to go to Disney World, and that's an incredible amount of money this April vacation. Unfortunately, that got closed. But we're planning to spend a lot of money with our family and eat there and stay there and stuff like that. So, if you build it, we will come. So I am in favor of option 2, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing just to piggyback that, I think one thing we've looked at growing up as a kid here, and I think we've got, I know Councilor Reardon for sure, there's a handful that grew up in this area. And one thing that I've always talked about is, I remember as a kid being able to drive across, ride my bike across, eventually drive across the bridge by Sappy. And it was great marketing because you could immediately look over and see on the hill the pool and all the activity and everything that was going on. And, you knew your friends were up there, and you could just see this just burst of activity. And now with all the overgrowth and everything down there, people don't even know where the pool is. You go across that bridge, and unless you know there's a softball field and a pool and other amenities, you don't even see it. So, one of the things we've really looked at is there an opportunity to get rid of some of the invasive species down there? On Main Street itself, the entryway is very poorly marked. It's a street sign, but we've never put anything behind kind of dressing up that entryway and making it prominent. And all of that, along with paving the parking lot, it really will become a destination like you mentioned. And going back to Gary's comment about when you were a kid and the place being packed and at capacity, just Manchester, for example, they were seeing about 10,000 visitors a year at the park. And when they put the splash pad in, it went to about 15,000. For us, we're in the ballpark of about 2,000 visitors a year, 2,000 to 3,000 per summer at the pool. So I would imagine Again, if we can kind of get by what we're potentially losing and focus on what we're getting, I think that number will be not back to where it was 20 years ago when we were kids, Gary, but you'll see a big rebound for sure.
I haven't been down there in over 20 years.
Quick
We were
question.
teenagers, right? 20 years ago?
Did Chief Roberts, you have a question?
Thank you very much, Chairman Shaughnessy. I don't actually have a question. I just wanted to, first of all, support Director Post and his vision for the city of Westbrook, looking into the future and how we can provide opportunities for our local community members and visitors to enjoy a piece of the city. And I have to look at it from a public safety lens. And as timing would have it, I had on my calendar, I think about a week, maybe a week and a half ago, as a reminder that I wanted to bring forward to the council, and tonight I'm bringing it to the Facilities and Streets Committee, the dynamic of the public safety around our focus in the broader recreational area, not just the pool or the splash pad. And the safety dynamics, when there's a presence there during the day and things are operating, yes, like Councilor Chow talked about, we have lots of families coming in. The reality is we also have youth that are not attended, that their parents are saying, go play wherever you're playing, whether they know they're going to the city fields or the city amenities or not. And that becomes a public safety dynamic. In addition to the operational hours, what we have seen historically in my 5 years and listening to my officers leading up, the concern around the off hours activity, the draw that particular hub draws for kids at risk and kids from other communities that coming in, young adults of other communities that are coming in that don't have positive recreational ideas and are a risk and are a safety risk to our community members, and how to work all of this together so that the good law-abiding citizens, kids, family members that want to come and enjoy can do it safely. And there's not a risk, not only to the people that, some people are just intimidated by some of the youth that are there, some of the adults that are there. It's really more significant in the evening shift hours, those offices that work from 3 to 11 p.m. Usually once it starts getting dark and the people that are looking for more of a secluded area to do things that they shouldn't be doing, and how that impacts not only the officers going to those locations, but also being taken away from the rest of the city, and the increase in calls for service that we handle. I just wanted to raise that awareness. It just happens to be tonight is a good opportunity to bring it into the conversation. Again, I definitely want to wrap up by saying I completely support Director Post in the city and how we can make a safe environment, knowing that there's always going to be a risk and there's always going to be public safety situations that we have to respond to, but how can we do it? And I know the director talked about some investments in security and cameras and lighting and things like that. And I want to support that and how I and my team can be partners going forward in making this a reality for the future of Westbrook. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments? And then I'll make a few.
Yes, I do. I do have a couple comments. One was something that Mayor Foley mentioned, having a public hearing only if we make the change to the splash park. I think it's important to also have a public hearing, or a public process if we don't make a change. I think I'd like to hear more from the constituents, especially the ones that use the park and I'm sorry, the pool. And one thing that came to mind was having a citywide survey. I believe Mr. Spiller used one in the past. Perhaps that would be helpful for us to know what citizens of our city feel about the change or no change. And regarding what Chief Roberts mentioned, one of the concerns I have is definitely having no fencing in that area, having the activity, in the off hours. Was Chief Roberts also speaking to having that kind of, intimidating presence or off-hour presence during now with the pool, or just if we make the change to the splash park?
Chair, I have a comment.
Okay, did Chief Roberts want to respond?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Shaughnessy. Councilor Turcotte, in general, it's any draw, and that youth, whether it's pool right now, I'm just looking historically. I don't know what the future looks like for the city and the pool or the splash pad. Historically, the fields themselves is a draw for young youth that are at risk, and they can intimidate locals, they can cause problems, and we just need to police that and problem solve that.
Right.
And how do we do that? Because my officers cannot enforce our way out of this particular issue. So just raising that as an awareness for the council.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Ruanje?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for this wonderful presentation, which is really great. I love the savings, which is a very good thing to do. I just want to support and echo my colleagues, Councilor Turcotte and also the Mayor Foley. One of the concerns that I had myself, as Mayor said, what is the likelihood that we're going to have the pool open, even if it can be open this year? So looking at the options while the pool is not accessible is the best time. And I also really support the idea of Councilor Turcotte, who said that we need to hear from the constituency who actually uses the pool. That makes perfect sense. That was actually what I was going to raise, because we may be looking at the savings, we may be looking at something, but if there is an attachment to this piece by some of the constituency, it may be harder for us to make it a change just because we need the savings or just because we need a new thing that is flashy. But having said that, I'm really in favor of, and I will support the option 2, because I'm not sure how many times I have seen that pool being used, fully utilized. But again, some of the attraction that I saw on some of the images may be something that is new, refreshing, that may attract many families to take the kids over there. So I think I'm in support of that, but I will really support the option of allowing public hearing. Let them, we need to hear from them before we can make a final decision. So I'm in support of 2, but also we'll be supporting the public hearing either way, so we can give them the option of speaking. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak?
Yeah, can I just respond to, and I didn't mean to sound like I was against the option 2. I have seen my children run through some of these parks. I have seen one installed in the city of 1 million, 2 million people, and having adults run through it during the summer months. So, fully dressed in suits. So I see the attraction, and I can see how it will benefit the city. However, I do have some, I do have some questions that need to be answered before I make my final decision. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Chairman Shaughnessy, do you want me to address some of the questions that Councilor Chow put up real quickly?
Sure.
I think there's a couple that we didn't get to, I think. question one, what would the deficit be for the aquatics program if we ran only the one indoor pool? And to answer your question, if we were to go down the road and utilize as much savings as we could at the splash pad and only have the indoor, right now we operate about a $27,000 loss at the indoor pool. So if you add that to about the $6,500 loss we would potentially have at the splash pad, you're talking about $33,000 to $34,000 annually in terms of operating costs. However, if you look at expanding our indoor pool programs to offer open swim and additional lap swim during the summer months, you may be able to recoup some of that $15,000 revenue back. Just take a third of that, say, now you're looking at somewhere in the $25,000 range per year as opposed to $75,000. So hopefully that answers that question a bit. In terms of the, future meetings with the admission sales, I do have a budgetary breakout by budget line for what we spend at the outdoor pool and the indoor pool that I can email to the council right after this, just so that you have it. I probably should have included it in the packet we sent out, but my mistake, we were just focusing on the outdoor pool, but I should have included the overall aquatics picture as well. So I can email that out to you right after this discussion. So at least you have it in your pocket.
Maybe we can, Greg, some of the questions, I think what the Council Chow wanted is to just have those as part of our future considerations. So we could try to get those answered. It sounds like the committee's in favor of just exploring the option, and then we'll work on getting those answered. And Mr. Chair, if I might, I know you had some comments, but there was no comments submitted on the Q&A, but there was a number of comments on the Facebook Live event that was in support of the pool and people wanting us to keep the pool. So those of you who are watching who are in support of the pool, be on the lookout for our public hearing that we'll hope to have in June, so you can see in detail more the pros and cons. And as one of the questions was on there was possibly having interns as lifeguards in the future, and we can try to answer that. And then also the option for teenagers and older individuals, that we would have more expanded programming at the indoor pool for folks to use, where right now the indoor pool doesn't have as much programming in the summer. So just wanted to share those different public concerns that were raised on the pool. And then someone did mention about increasing taxes surrounding this, and this is a grant-funded project and potentially could help us save ongoing taxes. So just wanted to make sure folks were clear about that, and Greg can present that in more detail when we have an in-person public meeting in June. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And anybody else have any comments? Well, I just wanted to stress that I'm in favor of this moving forward to a public process. But I do want to hear from the public in terms of this. And I want to also, Greg, if you could get that budget breakdown. One of the things that I'm really concerned with is that we as a community don't lessen our capacity to teach our youth how to swim. I think that's a public safety issue as well, especially when you have something like a river running right through the middle of you.
Correct.
But it sounds like that swim lessons could be maintained and everything at the indoor pool.
Yeah, right now we haven't for a while offered lessons at the outdoor pool because you're always subject to weather and cancellations and rescheduling. So all the lessons we do summer and throughout the year are here at the indoor pool.
Okay, very good. Yeah, as a kind of process too, one of the things that I was wondering about is when and how does Recreation and Conservation Commission play into this? I mean, this seems to be squarely within their charge too, at least in an advisory sort of way. And so I'd hope we could reach out to them and get some input from them, seeing this as a recreational facility and they're actually funding part of this. And then also in terms of this, I assume this is not going to have changing rooms anymore. Is that right, Greg?
That is correct. Yeah,
Okay.
it would just be a scaled down building with restrooms and some water fountains, things of that nature.
Okay, very good. Okay, I think that's about it for me. Anybody else? Final comments?
So, Mr. Chair, if I may add, if
Sure.
someone, we're looking just for a recommendation to move this forth to the city council for a public hearing. So if somebody would want to make that motion, then we could consider
Okay,
that.
do I hear a motion?
Yes, Mr.
Right
Chairman, yeah.
And a second?
Second.
Councilor Turquette? All in favor?
Mr. Chair, we do need to make a roll call vote as
Sorry.
associated with the remote meeting state statute. So
Okay,
we'll ask the clerk to administer that for us, I believe.
thank you very much.
Ganjay,
Yes.
Committee Chair Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Councilor Morse,
Yes.
Councilor Chow,
Yes for option 2.
Vice President Turcott,
Yes.
Councilor Story,
Yes.
President Reardon.
Yes.
That's 7 in favor, none opposed.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else? Did you want to talk further, Mayor?
No, if the only thing we would need to adjourn, and we'd have to take a roll call vote for that as well.
Okay, I move to adjourn, if I can do that. Or does anybody want to move to adjourn?
I
will.
move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, Councilor Ranjay, Councilor Reardon seconds.
Councilor Ganjay,
Yes.
Committee Chair Shaughnessy,
Yes.
Councilor Morse,
Yes.
Councilor Chow,
Yes.
Vice President Turcott,
Yes.
Councilor Story,
Yes.
President Reardon.
Yes.
All right. We're adjourned.
night.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank
Marco.
you.
Thank you, everyone, for participating and joining us.
Thanks
Yeah.
everybody for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.